As with all Persona games, there has to be some kind of controversy surrounding it. Persona 4 has been a topic of discussion numerous times, and often it's the same issues resurfacing whenever the public feels like talking about it again. And when those issues get addressed in an interview, it tends to lead to headlines that entice the reader to engage with the article.
Man, that blur sure is pointless. It's completely obvious who it is.
If you're unfamiliar with the so-called issues, and intend to play the game, I'd recommend just waiting for the game to release. It's much more worthwhile to experience the game in its entirety without all of this in your mind. I say this for pretty much any Persona game. I just think it's better to go into the experience, play the game, and worry about the controversy if you really care. It has nothing to do with the quality or performance of the game, nor is it content being cut as far as we know. This has to do with the story and the character experience in a way that I just don't think is worth spoiling if you haven't played the games yet. But if you were looking for a spoiler warning, this long, lengthy paragraph is it, and I'd highly recommend that you don't watch this if you intend to remain spoiler-free. Alright, if you haven't left at this point, I'm assuming you're okay with spoilers, no matter how mild they may be. To no one's surprise, if you've been involved or seen Persona 4 discourse on any social media website ever, this is mostly about Yosuke. Kanji and Naoto make a surprise cameo in one of the questions, but nothing is really directly said about them that should cause any concern. Yosuke is not really a controversial character. There are aspects of him that can be considered controversial. On several occasions, he can be a bit offensive. There's a word I'm looking for. It's not really offensive. It's maybe brash, distasteful. During the game, especially with Kanji, Yosuke tends to poke fun at other characters' internal insecurities, which is part of what this game is about. While the game tries to frame it in a comedic sense, you can interpret it as hurtful, rude, or just insulting. Some people might be off-put by it because they don't experience the same thing with their own friends. I've seen several people say that a friend wouldn't do this. And it can feel like Yosuke is more of a bully than a friend. There are also several instances of anime pervy moments with Yosuke that can be viewed as less than tasteful. Sometimes it's content from the original Persona 4, and other times it's content from Golden. It really depends. But this isn't exactly what the interview that I want to get into addresses. This interview came from Kazuhisa Wada, the game's director.
If they lose more customers, it'll be because you're making such a stink about it.
Cutting to the chase, Wada is asked about potential changes to the game in regards to controversial scenes. And Wada responded that at a base nothing is changing, but, and this is the part that matters to some people, Yosuke was being softened a bit to appeal to modern audiences. And a lot of people did not like this statement. And one of the problems is obviously the wording. It's to appeal to modern audiences, and I think that gets people riled up, especially when it comes to remakes, just in general, not even necessarily specifically this. I saw a lot of responses that were frustrated with the attempt to appeal to new fans rather than stay true to the original script, which is a sentiment you hear a lot when it comes to remakes of older games. The idea that a remake is supposed to be made for older fans, but sometimes a remake is actually made for newer fans, and it's a big argument. It's hard to pull it apart. There are a handful of instances where Persona 3 Reload altered scenes from episode Aegis, and maybe a couple other places, I really don't know, potentially to make them more palatable for newcomers. It may not change the entire scene or the meaning the player is meant to take away from it, but it can be seen as stripping the scene of some of its nuance that it had in its original form. And people are worried that the nuance of characters like Kanji and Naoto is going to be lost in the remake. But in regards to them, Wada said that there would not be alterations to these characters. Yosuke is the only one who is touched upon when it came to the topic of modern audiences. However, in another interview, Wada did say that the characters' personalities that everyone is worried about have not been removed or nerfed. You can view this as damage control if you want. I can't stop you from viewing it that way. But it seems like to me, characters will retain their personalities and qualities without that much alteration. Keep in mind that the game is also being retranslated, which means there will be some changes from the English script because it's a new translation. And that's just how things are.
That's exactly what we just said.
I don't want to invalidate anyone's concerns. This part is mostly about what I think of the situation overall. And as usual, it's nuanced. If you want a black and white take of it's bad or it's good, go somewhere else. I don't have that for you. To me, these interviews lack substance. The questions are too broad, and the answers don't have examples. Due to the pre-release state of the game, there's a lot that the developers cannot share and aren't allowed to indulge by the parent company. Also, the way people are reacting to this makes it seem like Yosuke is extremely homophobic to the point where he is just yelling that he hates gay people or something every single line. And I really don't think he is. I think it's a community joke and we play it up because, you know, he does say some crazy stuff sometimes.
Whoa, you can cook? Well, you do seem to be great with your hands. Never mind.
I'd say the worst offender is the camping scene. Most of his other comments are more playful and less meant to be entirely offensive, and they're poking at his own insecurities about himself, as well as insecurities about other people. I get why a lot of people are concerned and maybe even upset, but I think there is a lot more to Yosuke than the fact that he prods at people's insecurities as a joke. It is, in a lot of ways, not to justify it, but textbook teenage behavior, especially for the time period this game takes place in. Now, of course, I didn't grow up in Japan. I don't really know anything about Japanese teenage culture or anything like that. A lot of it in games and anime is romanticized. It's not how things are. But growing up in this time period myself, teenagers just do that. I'm sure some people still do just do that. That's how people are. They make stupid jokes about other people's insecurities and, you know. But it's not the most defining trait about him. I don't think they should necessarily take this away, but I don't think changing it a bit and making the jokes a little more tasteful is going to assassinate his character. That being said, looping back to my previous point, I don't know what the changes are. None of us do except the developers of the game, and it's entirely possible that they made more drastic changes to his dialogue than what they're implying. With how general this statement is, you can understand how hard it is to assess these changes themselves. I just personally choose to believe that it is better to make final judgments when a game is out and we have documentable proof of these changes and the context on whether these are done both in the Japanese and English script or just the English one. As I said before, the game is getting retranslated. It's not just pulling Persona 4 Golden's script over to the new game and just translating the extra scenes. No doubt there will be some lines that differ from the original localization. I'm curious how it'll all be handled, especially with Teddy, who I think is more important to localize, and I think people are kind of glossing over Teddy as a whole in any interview instead of asking about Naoto, Kanji, and Yosuke because that's the thing that's going to get you headline clicks. And that's due to how much of Teddy's character is incredibly difficult to translate to Western audiences. Again, I'll link this video below, but there is a pretty good video about how Teddy is just almost impossible to localize in a lot of ways. And there's no real way to translate some of his character aspects to Western audiences.
And as the cherry on top, enjoy your horrible virus parfait, chumps!
So my stance is just that pre-release interviews are just an incredibly difficult task to tackle. For many people, it's part of their job, and I don't want to discredit that. Sometimes you just have to do these interviews. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be done. But my own opinion is that I don't like them too much, as there isn't a lot of content you can really grab from them. Any specific questions about unrevealed information tend to get lost in vague answers that are too broad to hone in on the details. And that's by design, as developers are often not allowed to reveal a lot of this information, and or don't want to do it in an interview as opposed to a trailer or a larger press release. This also varies between large companies and indie developers. In the case of Persona 4 Revival, I think the story details and alterations are things that the developers at Atlus really don't want to get into, as that is the meat and bones of their game. You can't have a Persona game without a narrative and lovable characters. It's easy to see why people are upset, but also reasonable to say that not enough information is available to make final judgments about the changes. But you can let me know what you think of all this in the comments down below. Do you think that these changes are horrible, even though we don't know what they are? Do you think they should just stick with the Persona 4 Golden script? Let me know in the comments. As always, you can leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe to the channel for more things Persona, Atlas, and JRPG related. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.
No!